right, hey guys, today we're going to talk about war in the Pacific. Describe the details behind the Bataan Death March. What was significant about the Battle of Midway, and why was island hopping an effective strategy? Very important for us in the Pacific. So, war in the Pacific. I think one of the things that makes this entire war so interesting is that it really depended on what ticket you got, if you were American GI, as to what your experience was going to be like. If you got the ticket to go to Europe, you may in the winter, of course, face frigid temperatures, lots of snow. In the summer, a milder climate, not very hot, but not too cool, and more of landscape like we're used to here in North Carolina. Whereas if you got a ticket to go to the Pacific, you're going to be on some small remote island where there is no other life except the Japanese who are trying to kill you. You're going to have to deal with sand and extreme heat, all kinds of diseases that we have faced before with tropical diseases. So it's just totally different based on where you end up, your experience. So I brought an island here for you to keep in mind that Pacific is going to be lots of trees, lots of islands, and they have to deal with this throughout their war in the Pacific. So MacArthur Douglas MacArthur, General MacArthur, is just a curmudgeon kind of a person, can be very difficult, set in his ways, but an excellent general. And he famously is forced to retreat from the Bataan Peninsula to Australia. Now, Bataan had been part of the Philippines, so you'll have a lot of Filipinos there. He's forced to leave and go to Australia. The Japanese are fiercely attacking us on the Bataan Peninsula. So he leaves April 42, no surprise. Bataan falls to the Japanese, so they win it, and they capture with that 76,000 Filipino and American prisoners. Those prisoners are then marched 60 miles, some of them barefooted, but they're marched all on foot, beaten, tortured along the way. If your fellow POW fell and you went to help that person up, even though you have not been fed and being tortured also along the march, you helped them up, you would be executed. And the thinking was that the Japanese wanted that prisoner of war that you helped to feel guilty for your execution. They basically won't be fed. They'll be given very small ration of water. It's really terrible. This becomes known as the Bataan Death March. It says Japanese treatment of prisoners went against the Geneva Convention. I'll explain more of that in a minute. But the Geneva Convention said POWs should be treated humanely. And the Japanese absolutely did not believe in that. Some pictures of the Bataan Death March. Here's one of the guys marching. Oh, and awful temperatures, extreme heat through the sand. Here's another which shows you how these are survivors of the march, how little they were fed. It's really a miracle that they made it through this alive. And I thought I had one more, but maybe not. So that gives you the idea of the Bataan Death March. Really awful. All right, so then the Allies sort of turned the tide, so to speak, in the Pacific. We have the Battle of Midway, which is June 4th of 42, also obviously a summer date. This battle, you need to remember, is fought almost entirely by air. So planes, because Midway Islands are so small, with the Japanese Admiral Yamamoto Isoroku, who's designed the Pearl Harbor attack, and we've mentioned that before. He's leading an attack against the U.S. on Midway Island. Okay, and there was a famous airstrip there that we were trying to get. It says U.S. Admiral Chester Nimitz. Make sure you know Mr. Nimitz, Admiral Nimitz, Navy guy here in the Pacific, will manage to sink 4 Japanese carriers and shoot down 250 Japanese planes. The Japanese never truly recover their naval power after we win at Midway. Let me show you a couple of things with that. I think this is a cool artist rendering of Midway. You see the big aircraft carrier here and the planes fighting over the water. And also here's a map, and I think this is interesting. The Japanese have everything behind this line from here back. The Japanese have to this point. Yamamoto wants to increase their territory here, and part of that involves, there it is, Midway. You see it's fairly close to Hawaii, so a similar climate, and really pretty much in the middle of the Pacific between North America and Asia. Okay, so this was an important, very important battle, even more so because we are able to, this is where we have the USS Yorktown is torpedoed but does not sink, and they're able to save that ship. We take down, as I mentioned, the 4 Japanese carriers. We are able, three other battleships of ours are spared, so they can go on into Guadalcanal with a lot of success. So we win with Chester Nimitz at the Battle of Midway. Guadalcanal, it is 11,000 Marines versus 2,200 Japanese. This is the Marines' first taste at jungle warfare. Swamps, rivers, vines, snakes, all of it. Very big deal. Let me show you some pictures of Guadalcanal. Here's a good example of the jungle warfare. So you see the palm trees and everything. This guy's got his sleeves rolled up, really hot. Just sort of muggy, nasty weather. Here's another one, which really is my favorite. I think because it reminds me, that's too much, of Vietnam. So much. But you see water and just heat and jungle life is Guadalcanal. And one more, I'll show you where it is, which is interesting. Here it is, Guadalcanal, very close to Australia. So you see we're very close to that. All right. So the great thing about Guadalcanal is we win at Guadalcanal through this jungle warfare, and the Marines do, and the Allies conquer their first major piece of Japanese territory. So we are definitely on the offensive. We use an idea called island hopping, which is to attack specific enemy islands and bypass others. And there was supposed to be, there was a rhyme or reason to it, but there wasn't supposed to be an obvious pattern. It allowed the Allies to cut off the other islands from supplies. So even if we took one island and we skipped the next, and we took the one after that, for example, then we were able to cut off the one we didn't take from getting any supplies. But it was really not that obvious of take one, skip one, take one. It was much more haphazard than that. It made it where the Japanese could not predict what we were going to do next, which was really a genius idea. Here is an example here of island hopping. So you see here leaving Pearl Harbor and hitting these areas, hitting Marshall Islands but skipping Wake, notice, hitting Guam but skipping the Mariana Islands, so on and so forth. So you see there's some skipping, hit and miss. This doesn't show you the timetable, but these were not, it wasn't totally in this doesn't represent time. Like Marshall Islands hit, then Guam hit, then others, back and forth, back and forth. It wasn't necessarily, as I mentioned, a pattern. Okay, MacArthur, of course, wants to go back into the Philippines because he's promised them he would return and free those people from the Japanese control. And American forces are against this. After much negotiation, Roosevelt listens to MacArthur, and make sure you know that. The FDR and MacArthur have a fairly good relationship. That's going to come up later. And MacArthur, they talk, and basically FDR changes the orders and enters the Philippines. And upon stepping on shore, MacArthur famously says, "People of the Philippines, I have returned." Okay. It says, however, the U.S. basically destroyed the Japanese Navy. Eventually, the Japanese troops in the Philippines, this is Bataan area, surrender. Okay, so at first they take it, run us off. We go back into the Philippines area and famously take it back by MacArthur standards. Okay, and I'm not sure that I have anything for that. I don't think so. All right, Iwo Jima. So this is a volcanic island off the coast of Japan. We're getting closer to Japan now, February of 45, and closer to the end of the war. Remember, it's going to end in August. 110,000 American troops take part. Marines storm the beaches of Iwo Jima. Fierce fighting takes several months, and we finally gain control of the island. More medals of honor were given out here than any other single operation of the war at 27. This is where the famous photo of the servicemen raising the American flag of Mount Suribachi comes to represent servicemen in the Pacific. So a picture of that. Here is, well, I'll show you this. This is going to show you the famous picture. There it is, of the guys digging in, putting up the American flag on the island of Iwo Jima. And it says U.S. Marines of the 28th Regiment are putting that up. This is the story behind Joe Rosenthal's picture. That was his famous picture that he took for Time magazine. Okay, many people accuse him and these Marines of staging it. And he always defied that and said, no, it was not staged. And it goes on to talk about that here and Rosenthal's explanation of the full raising of the flag there. And it discusses that, okay, which is pretty cool. But anyway, so it was the real deal. All right. So that's that. Here's another picture of it, the smaller. Really, especially with the clouds in the background, cool picture. Okay, so that's Iwo Jima. So we're able to take that. More medals of honor given out there than any other place. All right, and then finally you have the Battle of Okinawa, where it says we lose 50,000 men. Very hard fought battle, April to June of 45. But we're able to hold it together, win this particular fight, which gives us a clear path to Japan. We lose so many men, though, it kind of tarnishes that victory. But nevertheless, I already showed you that, I'm sorry. Going back to Okinawa, here it is. So again, very much like fighting here in the jungle area at Okinawa. We're a little further north, though, than we were before, but very fierce fighting that'll take us straight to Japan pretty much. Okay, so now we're going to go back to our essential questions. Describe the details behind the Bataan Death March. And that was, of course, that MacArthur had been run out of Bataan area, which was once Filipino. The area falls to the Japanese, and Americans and Filipinos are taken prisoner, and they're walked over 60 miles. They're not fed, given a little bit of water, beaten, tortured along the way. What was significant about the Battle of Midway? It was fought almost entirely by air, and it also said here on the next sheet, that the Japanese never really recovered their naval power. This is where Chester Nimitz, Admiral Nimitz, with the Navy is going to rise to the occasion. And then island hopping is effective because the Japanese cannot figure out the pattern. There's no rhyme or reason. So it's hard for them to play defense when they don't really know where we're going to attack next. Okay, I'm going to do one more quick video and read you some of the torturous things the Japanese do to Americans. So stay tuned for that.